the ascendant and the vectors of attraction, the persona and the mirror of the other. The ascendant represents the cusp of the first terrestrial house, the horizon line at the exact moment of birth. If you point your arm in the direction of the sun at 6 o'clock in the morning, right there you have the ascendant. In archetypal psychology, it is equivalent to the Jungian persona, the social mask, the filter through which the individual presents themselves to the world, and the lens through which they view external reality. The enigmas of archetypal astrology, the occult alchemy between the Scorpio woman and the Taurus man. Enigmas of the Zodiac, the psychology of the signs. In the powerful solidity of earth and the deep emotions of water, few dynamics are as magnetic, dense, and profoundly enigmatic as the encounter between the abyssal magnetism of Scorpio and the unshakable solidity of Taurus. When a woman ruled by the subterranean waters of Pluto crosses the path of a man sustained by the fertile earth of planet Gaia and Venus, the universe is not merely promoting a casual romance or attraction. It is activating one of the most powerful axes of archetypal astrology, the axis of life, death, regeneration, and matter. After all, why do some relationships seem to carry the weight of past lives, an intensity that defies logic, and an attraction that burns even when everything suggests there should be repulsion? The answer to this mystery does not reside in superficial horoscope predictions, but rather in the occult anatomy of their natal charts, where the sun, Mercury, the moon, and the ascendant weave an invisible web. If you wish to understand how these two titans of the zodiac attract and repel each other, and discover the secret to decoding the mind and heart of this couple, you need to dive into this profound psychological journey. Stay with us until the end, because what we will reveal about the silent communication and hidden shadows of this relationship will forever change your view on love synastry. Take this initial moment to like the video, leave your comment on what you think of this combination, share it with that special someone, and subscribe to the channel Enigmas of the Zodiac, the psychology of the signs, so you don't miss our next profound astrological studies. Prepare yourself, for the portal of archetypal mysteries is about to open. The sun and the levels of consciousness. The journey of the self and the alchemy of opposites. For traditional psychological astrology, the sun does not merely represent the ego or superficial personality. It is the ultimate symbol of the self, the core of a soul's purpose of individuation. In the dynamic between the Scorpio woman and the Taurus man, we find the classic encounter of complementary opposites. Her scorpionic sun shines in the depths of the psyche. She is the personification of the phoenix, a consciousness that develops through crises, transmutations, and the incessant search for the truth hidden behind appearances. The Scorpio woman brings an existential intensity that does not tolerate superficiality. She needs to touch the bottom of the emotional ocean to feel alive. In contrast, his Taurus sun operates in the stability of the physical plane. The Taurus man is the builder of the zodiac, the guardian of matter, whose consciousness expands through preservation, sensory pleasure, and the search for unshakable peace. The spiritual alchemy occurs precisely in the clash of these two solar forces. The Taurus man offers the Scorpio woman a safe harbor, a solid base, and a tangible structure where she can finally anchor her emotional storms without the constant fear of betrayal or abandonment. She finds a rock in him. On the other hand, the Scorpio woman awakens in the Taurus man the perception that life is not limited to what can be seen or touched. She pushes him out of his comfort zone, forcing him to face the invisible currents of the soul and to understand the power of detachment. It is a mutual process of individuation. He teaches her the art of grounding and nurturing. She teaches him the power of rising from the ashes. However, this solar fusion hides a silent danger that few astrologers reveal. If the sun represents the light of consciousness, what happens when the mind and communication come into play? The true battle for this relationship does not occur at the level of the spirit, but rather in the mental gears of Mercury, where a little-known astronomical detail can save or destroy this union. Mercury and mental affinity, the orbits of communication and the silence of fixed signs. To understand the mental affinity of this couple, we must look to a rigorous astronomical law that dictates the rules of psychological astrology. The planet Mercury never moves more than 28 degrees away from the Sun. This means that Mercury can only be located in 3 specific signs relative to each individual solar sign: in the solar sign itself, in the preceding sign, or in the succeeding sign. This cosmic limitation shapes the cognitive structure and communication capacity of both, defining how they express their thoughts and resolve their conflicts in daily life. In the Scorpio woman, her Mercury will obligatorily be in Libra, Scorpio, or Sagittarius. If her Mercury is in Libra, she will seek diplomatic, balanced, yet still investigative communication. If it is in the sign of Scorpio itself, her mind will operate as a psychological radar, a detective that reads between the lines, catches lies in the air, and prefers surgical silence over small talk. If it is in Sagittarius, her mind gains a philosophical tone, direct and focused on the search for higher truths. Meanwhile, in the Taurus man, Mercury will be located in Aries, Taurus, or Gemini. With Mercury in Aries, his thought process will be direct, assertive, and at times impatient. In the sign of Taurus itself, his mind will be linear, pragmatic, slow to process, but extremely solid and focused on practical solutions. With Mercury in Gemini, he will be more versatile, curious, and verbally flexible. The great behaviorist challenge, that is, the practical, visible behavior, and the day-to-day reactions of both emerges when her analytical and penetrating mind tries to decode his linear and concrete mind. Scorpio communicates through subtexts, glances, and silences heavy with meaning. Taurus, on the other hand, understands the literalness of words. He needs clarity and hates mental games or hints. If the Scorpio woman retreats into her cocoon expecting the Taurus man to guess her anxieties, she will find only the peaceful silence of a man who assumes that if nothing was said, everything is fine. This mental misalignment can create an insurmountable barrier where her silence becomes a weapon of punishment and his silence becomes a shield of indifference. But the mind is only the tip of the iceberg. Below reason lies an ocean of basic needs and affective memories that governs their most primitive reactions. What the moon hides in the unconscious of this couple is the true engine of their mutual dependence. The moon and the affective tabernacle, emotional correspondence, and the fear of vulnerability. If the sun confers spiritual direction and Mercury weaves the threads of the mind, the moon is the affectionate tabernacle of the psyche. It governs the unconscious, automatic survival reactions, cellular memory, and the way each person seeks security and emotional nourishment. In the synastry between the Scorpio woman and the Taurus man, the moon assumes a drastic role. If they possess incompatible lunar positions, daily coexistence can become a minefield, as both belong to fixed signs, which means their basic needs are rigid and difficult to modify. The Scorpio woman, at her emotional core, requires total surrender, depth, and a loyalty bordering on the absolute to feel secure. For her, love is a visceral fusion. She needs to know that her partner is willing to walk with her through the darkest valleys of existence. Her emotional security depends on transparency and intensity. The Taurus man, conversely, finds his security in simplicity, predictability, and material and sensory comfort. For him, affection is demonstrated through physical presence, touch, sustenance, and a peaceful routine, free from psychological dramas or turbulence. His moon asks for peace. Her moon asks for passion and transformation. The most acute psychological risk at this point is the development of a suffocating mutual possessiveness. Taurus expresses his attachment through a sense of physical and material possession, treating the relationship as a sacred heritage that he must protect and control. Scorpio expresses her attachment through emotional and psychological control, monitoring the nuances of her partner's behavior to ensure he does not drift away. When these two forces of retention collide, the relationship can stagnate in a cold war of stubbornness, where neither yields for fear of appearing vulnerable. Full emotional correspondence is only achieved when the Taurus man understands that the Scorpio woman's crises are not personal attacks but cries for help for more depth, and when the Scorpio woman understands that his apparent calmness is not a lack of feeling but his purest way of offering stability. I will leave a link for a free PDF with the best moon positions for the Taurus man with the Scorpio woman. Just keep watching. If you have suggestions, you can also write them in the comments. However, even before the Sun, Mercury, or the Moon connect, there is a mask that determines how these two beings look at each other for the very first time. The ascendant is the vector that dictates whether they will attract each other magnetically or repel each other immediately. The ascendant and the vectors of attraction, the persona and the mirror of the other. The ascendant represents the cusp of the first terrestrial house, the horizon line at the exact moment of birth. If you point your arm in the direction of the sun at 6 o'clock in the morning, right there you have the ascendant. In archetypal psychology, it is equivalent to the Jungian persona, the social mask, the filter through which the individual presents themselves to the world, and the lens through which they view external reality. The ascendant determines the first impact, the initial physical magnetism, and the mechanics of attraction and repulsion that operate even before two people get to know each other deeply. When we analyze the vectors of attraction between the Scorpio woman and the Taurus man, the configuration of their respective ascendants will dictate how the energy of the Taurus-Scorpio axis will be channeled in practice. If the ascendants of both are harmonious with each other, or if they coincide with the partner's solar signs, there will be an immediate ease of approach. Imagine, for example, that the Taurus man has a Scorpio ascendant, or that the Scorpio woman has a Taurus ascendant. In this scenario, the mirror phenomenon occurs. The persona of one is the self of the other. The attraction is instantaneous and almost inevitable, as each sees in the external behavior of the partner what they need to develop internally in their own evolutionary journey. This is very powerful. On the other hand, if the ascendants are in signs of extreme tension, such as one ascendant in Leo and the other in Aquarius, the mechanics of approach will be complex and full of archetypal projections. The danger of initial repulsion lies in the fact that both are energetically dense. If the social masks of both are rigid and proud, they may view each other as threats to their own control. The Taurus man may interpret her initial posture as overly defensive, mysterious, or intimidating. The Scorpio woman may view his persona as overly conventional, materialistic, or simplistic. Attraction in these cases is born from the mystery of the unknown. Repulsion is born from the fear of losing the sovereignty of the ego. Once this barrier of the first impression is overcome, the couple faces the raw reality of their behavioral coexistence, a diagnosis that requires maturity so as not to transform love into a prison of resentment. Behavioral diagnosis: the resistance of fixed signs and the avoidance of the Cold War. The analysis of this couple's daily behavior reveals a clear pattern of high resilience, but also of extreme rigidity. Since Taurus and Scorpio are signs belonging to the fixed cross of the Zodiac, the energy of both is characterized by concentration, persistence, and a refusal to be molded by external forces. In practical behavior, this fixity translates into unshakable loyalty. When this couple decides to stay together, they face any economic, family, or social storm with Herculean strength. They do not give up on each other easily. However, this same fixity is the root of their greatest behavioral poison, chronic stubbornness. In an argument, the Taurus man tends to dig his heels into the ground, refusing to change his mind or accept new perspectives, operating under a linear and inflexible logic. The Scorpio woman, for her part, does not give up ground easily. She entrenches herself in her emotional positions and, if hurt, can guard resentment deep in her soul for years, waiting for the ideal archetypal moment to bring the matter up. When conflict sets in, this couple risks entering a prolonged state of Cold War. The Taurus man isolates himself in his pragmatic silence to preserve his peace of mind, while the Scorpio woman withdraws into her emotional labyrinth, feeding silent grievances. To prevent the relationship from turning into a desert of indifference or a volcano about to explode, the couple needs to learn the art of psychological flexibility. The Taurus man needs to understand that validating his partner's deep emotions does not mean losing his stability, but rather expanding his heart. The Scorpio woman needs to understand that his pragmatism is not a lack of empathy, but his way of ensuring that their physical world remains safe. When both transcend the need for control and understand the mechanics of their behaviors, the relationship ceases to be a clash of egos and rises to its true purpose. This is where we leave behind the tools of behavioral psychology to embrace a perennial and transpessoral philosophical reading, revealing the true life path mapped out for this couple. Philosophical epilogue: the life path and the wholeness of the soul. Looking from a perennial and transpersonal philosophical perspective, the encounter between the Scorpio woman and the Taurus man is not a mere biological or social coincidence, but rather a sacred calling of the soul toward the process of individuation and the wholeness of being. This couple embodies the myth of the alchemical marriage, the mystical union between the king and the queen, matter and spirit, the visible and the invisible. Their existence together is an initiatory school where each holds the key to the other's liberation. Therefore, it is no coincidence that this is the axis of the density of form and the dissolution of it. The life path of the Taurus man, through this union, is to discover the spirit that dwells within matter. By living with the depth and intensity of the Scorpio woman, he is forced to abandon the illusion that security can be found only in earthly possessions, money, or physical stability. She teaches him that true peace is only born when we are able to face death, losses, and the inevitable transformations of existence without losing our essence. He learns from her the value of mystery, the invisible, and spiritual regeneration. The life path of the Scorpio woman, in turn, is to discover sanctity and peace through the acceptance of matter and the physical plane. By living with the solidity and serenity of the Taurus man, she is invited to heal her archetypal paranoia, her constant fear of betrayal, and her habit of seeing crises where there is only calmness. He teaches her that life can also be beautiful in its simplicity, that the earthly plane is a place of nourishment, and that love does not need to be synonymous with suffering or destruction to be real. She finds in his earth the fertile soil that allows her phoenix seed to sprout into a lush and peaceful tree. Together, they transcend the axis of polarity and achieve the perfect synthesis. Matter becomes spiritualized through the love of Taurus, and spirit becomes incarnated through the power of Scorpio. They finally become masters of their own destiny, walking side by side in building a life that is, at the same time, profoundly stable and infinitely transforming. If this profound and cliché-free analysis touched your soul and brought clarity to your journey, be sure to show your support. Like this video, comment below which of these points made the most sense to you, and share this content with anyone who needs to understand the real depth of psychological astrology. Subscribe to the channel Enigmas of the Zodiac, the Psychology of the Signs. To continue receiving our detailed studies, turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Archetypal knowledge is the key to the evolution of our consciousness. See you in the next video of the channel Enigmas of the Zodiac, the Psychology of the Signs, where we will continue to unveil the greatest enigmas of the cosmos and the human mind. Until then, may your journey be illuminated by the wisdom of the stars.